This is Cruise Radio.
Cruise Radio is brought to you in part by tripinsurance.com. Travel insurance done right by the people who know travel insurance. Get a quote today at tripinsurance.com.
Broadcasting from the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida.
This is
Cruise Radio. Cruise Radio.
Derek and Kate took a 7-night cruise on the MSC Euriba out of Southampton last year, and they join us on the line to chat about it. How are you?
Hey, Doug. How are you?
Hi, Doug.
Great to have you on. Thanks for being here. Now, I remember when this ship was first coming out, I was following the construction progress, and they had that big mural, that painting on the side of the ship, like the, I guess, Norwegian ships first came out with. But my question is, did it live up to the hype?
You know what? I really liked it. It's different than being that great white obelisk parked in the harbour. I thought it was quite fun, and I think it's maybe a bit of a nod towards MSC going into that family market a little bit more, definitely aiming at that. It looks like a big fun ship with the slides, water park off the back of it as well. It looks really nice.
What made y'all want to sail this 7-nighter on MSC with it being your first time and all?
Honestly, it had been a few months since we had been on a cruise. I'd been pretty flat out with work, and I was working in a pretty cold south of England, and I found this deal come up and did a bit more research and messaged Kate and got permission to book it.
He basically told me how much it was, and I said, yeah, that's a good deal. Let's do it.
Did you take advantage of their status match program and kind of leapfrog over certain levels since it was your first time? You walked right in and be like, oh, look, I'm this status instead of entry level. Yeah,
absolutely. And I actually heard one of your podcasts before, and they said it took a while, and I think you experienced that as well. For me, it took 3 days. For Kate,
probably about 5 days. It wasn't much difference.
Yeah, so we did that. We're Emerald on Royal, so we went straight in at Gold with MSC. There's a few different bits and pieces. I think you can get, similar to other lines, you can get sort of discounts on stateroom upgrades. You can get pre-cruise discounts. We didn't do that because we went through a travel agent and got a pretty good deal with them. But the best one was an hour free access to the thermal suite. I know it was, where were we?
So we were in Rotterdam, and we decided not to get off the ship on that particular port because we wanted to use some of the facilities on board whilst it was a little bit quieter. Mm. So it was all right weather outside, but it was not as warm as we would hope in like a Caribbean cruise. But first time using one of the thermal spas, and it was, converted us completely. We'd definitely do it again. It was wonderful.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, Doug, I have never had a minty shower before, but I'm a changed man. I recommend it if you get a chance, because I was a little bit skeptical about the thermal suite and all those sorts of things. But it was a very pleasant way to spend a couple of hours, I tell you.
All right, well, it's cruise day, and I got to try that minty shower. It's cruise day. You make your way down to Southampton to board the ship, which can, sometimes be busy on embark day. How was it, and how long did it take you from the curb to the ship?
We were getting on at the Horizon terminal, and we have boarded in there before, and we've done a few cruises from Southampton now. Our worst experience was with Princess in the city cruise port. That was horrific. From dropping our bags off, 10 minutes. We dropped our cases, we picked up our card, we walked on the ship. Honestly, maybe not even 10 minutes.
Yeah, because we didn't park right next to the terminal as well. We decided to park a little bit further in town in the multi-story because it saved about $100 to park there for the week. So then it was only about a 15-minute walk from there to the terminal, and we just walked through, essentially dropping off the bag. We never stopped at any point. 10 minutes would be the absolute maximum that it actually took us to get on board the ship, which was really good.
This might be a stupid question, but because this, people could be flying internationally, say from the U.S. to Europe to board this cruise, does it leave any later than standard departure time? Like, Miami's like dead on 3:30 or 4 o'clock. Is it later over there because of that?
So because this cruise embarks at every port, so people may have got on in Hamburg, and so this was their day in London. So I think on a Southampton day, they get into port, the gangway comes down around 7:30, 8 a.m. and I think it
I think it was 7:30 for all aboard.
Yeah, all aboard 7:30. Maybe it pulls out eight, maybe even later. Because getting into London from Southampton takes a couple of hours on a coach.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a long embarkation process.
Your very first impressions walking on board MSC Euriba.
Honestly, it is wow. When you enter into the Galleria, immediately you're confronted by the great big LED ceiling on one side, and then you turn around and you've got the stunning Swarovski crystal staircases. With MSC, they're ever so slightly different to Royal, and is that the app doesn't work at all, really. There's no functionality to it until you're on board. So that being reasonably seasoned cruisers and knowing that we've got to sort of get our things booked and we're concentrating on that. But I must admit, I was distracted. I had this whale animation going along the ceiling. It was just, you can't help but stop and take a picture. I'm not much of a one for selfies and taking thousands of pictures, but you must admit, it took me back to when we first walked onto a ship, which was Enchantment of the Seas in 2018, into the Centrum there, and that proper wow factor. And I honestly haven't felt that wow for a while. It's not quite the same on a Quantum class ship or on an Oasis class ship. Walking into the promenade, it doesn't quite have the same feeling. Maybe we're just lucky with the doors we walked through. But yeah, it
had a lot of impact. It was from the moment you walked through, whichever way you looked, it was impressive. As Derek said, the video ceiling, that you had all the sort of animations that were going on there, you just couldn't help but just stand there and look up in awe. It was incredible.
And then we quickly went and got a snack.
Well, I wouldn't expect anything different. Well, let me ask you this. When you board these ships in North America, right when you cross the gangway and you get into the atrium, it's like full court press, buy the drink package, buy the dining package. Is it like that sailing MSC in Europe?
Actually, no. We got pressed more on other days of embarkation days. On that first day, there wasn't too many people there trying to get you. We had the ultimate package anyway, so we just sort of do the polite British thing and smile and walk past people. It wasn't too bad. The photographers later on in the week were getting a little bit more insistent. But on that first day, honestly, they just
it was pretty much they were there if you wanted to talk to them, but they weren't sort of coming over and pressuring you, which we've had on other cruises before as well. And as Derek said, it was a bit later on in the week we experienced that as well. But that first day, it was all very nice and relaxed. It was lovely. Now
that I think about it, I guess because it's being a ferry schedule, you really don't know who's coming or going aside from the visual cues like the suitcase or what have you.
Mouth open, staring in awe at the beauty that surrounds you. Yeah.
A weird suitcase full of shoes.
For the stateroom on this 7-nighter, what kind did you book and how was it throughout your voyage?
So we got really lucky. We actually booked an interior and we somehow ended up with an Aurea balcony. It was up on the 12th floor. It's very nice. It is more modern than some of the royal ships. Like we were on Anthem just last year, and it felt quite a lot nicer than Anthem did.
Yeah, the size isn't quite as big as the balcony rooms are on Royal Caribbean, but it was very nicely decorated. There was plenty of different ports and things to charge. But the only thing is they have different ones. So you've got to make sure that you have adapters with you for different styles of chargers. But they had like the USB ports that were next to the beds as well and on the dresser. So we never struggled to be able to charge any devices in there. And what I really liked in the bathroom, they had a magnification mirror as well. So for ladies being able to, sort of do your makeup a little bit more before you go and getting dressed up to go out in the evening. It was just nice to have that little extra touch in there.
What does an Aura cabin mean?
So yeah, I think it's an Aura. So I think it's a section of the ship which is dedicated if you buy the Aura package. Okay. I think it's sort of a bit of a plum location on the ship. We didn't. We were just on a Bella package, I think it's called. And we quite quickly learned that there is a bit of a difference because I tried to do a bit of research. As I say, it was my first MSC cruise. We didn't really know what was going on. But yeah, if you had an Aura package, it meant that you could barter a little bit more for your dining time and adjust it because they were pretty fixed with the dining time on the Bella package. But apart from that, it was it was a very nice room. It was a little bit tighter, as Kate said, so that when you're going down the side of the bed past the curtains, it was a bit of a squeeze. You couldn't do it at night. If you did it in the morning coming back from the bathroom, you'd open the curtain.
Let's switch to dining now. Move to the buffet first. How was that throughout the week and the quality of food there?
Doug, that's a fantastic question. We've both
Horizon.
Yeah, that sounds about
Horizon. Horizon Marketplace.
Horizon Marketplace.
There you go, Horizon Marketplace.
The fear that was on my wife's eyes then as she was trying to remember that was quite impressive. You know what? The marketplace was fantastic. First thing that I noticed, the burgers and hot dogs were wrapped in paper, and that just kept them that little bit moister and stopped them drying out. And I know that's just a little thing, but I think we've all done it. We've gone out to the buffet and, there's let's just say an air-dried burger sitting up there. I didn't experience that across the whole sailing. So that was just one of those little things that, all right, yeah, they've thought about that. Being Hamburg, one of the embarkation ports, there was lots of good sausage. I think the combination of British cruisers and German cruisers, if you're a fan of sausage, it was fantastic. They had bratwurst on there. They had English link sausages. They had a few, like some of the different wursts and bits and pieces, and that was really, really nice. Good cheese.
Very good cheese.
One of the better cheese selections we've seen. No offense to our North American friends, but sometimes your cheese selections are a little bit wanting. And the European cheese section was great. That was really nice. But Doug, I've got to tell you, and this might be controversial, the pizza up there, it is the best slice at sea, mate. Mm-hmm. It is, Alfredo's on Princess is nice. Just the bread. You'd just eat the crust. You'd just get the crust and dip it in whatever random stuff you picked up from the buffet. It was lovely.
I mean, I'd go as far as to say it's not even just at sea. I think that's probably the best pizza that I've had. It was incredible.
Very nice. Very Neapolitan style pizza. Sometimes it was just a straight margarita. Sometimes not even cheese. There was a spinach and sausage one, which was wonderful. Nothing you would say was a normal pizza, but they were all just lovely. Made Sorrento's. I mean, I love Sorrento's for a late night slice, and I'm not sure I'm going to look at it the same way ever again.
And what I really liked about the buffet as well was that they did stay open quite late. So there was times when, it's 2:00 in the morning, for example, and, we've gone up there and technically they're closed at that point, but they've still got some food. They just stay open for everyone to have a little early hours snack as well. So we'd be finishing up at 2 a.m. after a few cocktails. And there's still some pizza there. So we'll go and have a little slice of pizza before we go to bed. All very healthy.
Well, you are on a cruise, and plus the Italian lines do have great pizza. All right, so how about the main dining room?
For our class of booking, we had between the Aurora Borealis and the Aurora Boreal. And it's a sign, but we didn't know what our dining time was until we got on board. I'm not sure if that's different for other people, but
so when we did speak to them, because we've been given a late dining time, which was an 8:15 seating, and ideally we normally like to eat a little bit earlier than that, probably around about 7:30. But they said when we spoke to them, it was an early start at 5:30 or an 8:15 start, and that was the only choices. And apparently our travel agent had put the request in for a late seating for us, which we made work, so it was fine. But because we had the basic package, the Bella package, that meant that we weren't able to change our dining time. If we'd had one of the more premium packages, then that would have been a bit more flexible for us to be able to make those changes.
Just so I'm clear on this, depending on what class of, like the Aura class or whatever classes there are, depending on what you book, what class you book, depends on where you sit in the main dining room?
Yeah, so one of the things, what we could change, because we were on a shared table, and then when we looked at the schedule, we realized that it was going to be pretty tight if we wanted to do the MDR. It was going to be pretty tight in and around the entertainment, because we go on board, we enjoy the entertainment, we like to prioritize that. And it's a little bit rude to try and rush a seating if you're on a table with others. So we requested that we change to a private table for two, and they facilitated that. That was absolutely fine. It was just changing your time once on board with the Bella package. That wasn't a goer.
All right, good to know. Any specialty restaurants on this 7-nighter?
We didn't. We don't often. We've done Jamie's a couple of times on Royal, just for the novelty that they're the last Jamie's restaurants that are left in the world. All the other ones closed down. The NDR was a bit disappointing, if I'm honest, with the selections. I think if you like fish, I think you'd probably be okay, but I'm not a massive seafood lover. So yeah, honestly, with the pizza being that good, we went to the buffet most evenings.
Yeah, so the 7-night cruise, we ate in the main dining room twice, and then we went to the buffet the other times. And because, as Derek said, we do like entertainment a lot, so that is our main priority in the evenings. It meant that we could sort of have a nice quick in and out, just, sort of 20 minutes to have dinner, half an hour, and then we could go and make sure that we get a good seat for the entertainment.
Plus, it's your vacation. You can do whatever you want.
Exactly.
Well, and speaking of entertainment, both of you have entertainment backgrounds. So what did y'all think of it?
And this is the thing. So I've worked in the technical side of theatre for 25 years plus. Kate has a theatrical background. We are probably pickier than most. There's been a bit of a trend recently with bands disappearing off of ships. Mm-hmm. The theatre cast playing to track, as they did on this one. But what they have on Euriba is the big band at sea, and it is just an incredible show. They've got 17-piece orchestra and 2 unbelievable vocalists, and it was absolutely fantastic in the carousel lounge at the back of the ship.
And this is a new concept for them. So the Euriba is the first one that's actually had this sort of setup. And based on going to the theatre, you had to pre-book for the theatre. And, we'd get there reasonable time to make sure we had a good seat. But there was always spare seats available if people needed. Mm-hmm. The carousel lounge where we had the big band at sea, you couldn't book, you had to get there. And even if we got there an hour early, like we couldn't get seats sometimes. You'd have to just kind of hover and hope that someone might be leaving, or that there's one spare seat and then the other person can stand behind you. It was just so popular. So I think it's just proved what a good concept it is, and hopefully they'll roll it out across some of their other ships as well.
Yeah, they say Callum and Leah, the vocalists with the big band, were genuinely the best vocalists that we've seen at sea, and you would happily pay money to see them. I couldn't be that nice about the rest of the vocalists around the ship. Some of the lounge entertainment was
fine. It was very much that it was background noise to sort of hear. There wasn't anyone in the general lounge areas where, you'd hear them sing and go, wow, they're really good. You got that at the big band. And in the lounge areas, it was just a nice bit of sound to listen to whilst you're having a conversation or a game of cards.
The only redeeming feature in the Delphi Theatre was the aerialist acts, the specialist acts. They had a knife throwing act, strongman acts. They had some brilliant ballroom dancers. The dance troupe with the theatre, 6 or 7 of them, they were fine. The vocalists were not fantastic. They had an Ed Sheeran songbook night, and my only recommendation is don't. I don't know what Ed Sheeran did wrong, but he doesn't deserve that.
Ouch! That back lounge, that is the carousel lounge, correct?
Yeah. And that feels like an old music hall style of place, like a Copa lounge kind of thing.
And they had the projections all around, like they had the blinds that come down on the big windows, the projections go on there, and they've got another sort of LED video wall around the back section as well. So when music is playing and when they've got like after the big band, they have it as like a bit of a party space as well. They've got graphics that are playing, which sort of complement everything, and the theme as well. Because every evening there was a different theme. So on the first evening, I think it was swing, and they had soundtrack, they had rock, they had a diva night one night as well, where Leah was, as the lead vocalist, was so incredible that you felt a little bit sorry for the other girls that were attempting to keep up with her. But it was so good to have a different theme every evening, and all the band all dressed up as well. And I had to do a shout out to the percussionist in that band as well. He was hilarious.
Living his best life. The show was great, but you couldn't take your eyes off of him. I haven't seen anyone hit chimes like that with that much ferocity and joy for a very long time.
Yeah, I didn't know whether to call it an end stage setup or an in the round, because it really doesn't seem like either of those.
It's very similar to 270. I mean, it feels like they looked at that on Quantum and went, yeah, that's a really good idea. Let's do that. Unfortunately, it's not quite as big. It seats about 400. It's not the most efficient seating, a bit like on those Quantum class ships in 270. But it's fantastic. As a concept, we really enjoyed it. I mean, it suits us really well. We're not a big fan of those production shows where they try, like, you're never going to try and get a good narrative arc into 45 minutes with lackluster performances. But if you've got a lad and a lass there who are absolutely belting you with unbelievable vocals, and you've got a 17-piece orchestra, it's fantastic, absolutely fantastic. I can't recommend it highly enough. It's worth doing that cruise just to listen to those guys play.
They rehearse regularly as well, so we went along a couple of times in the afternoon to that venue just to have a bit of a relax with a cocktail and play a couple of games of cards. And they'd quite often be there in the afternoon rehearsing, and that particular area would be packed with people because they're so good that even in rehearsal you want to just hear and listen to them, even if they stop a song halfway through, because you just enjoy what they're doing, the music that they make, the skill that they have. It's ruined me for other cabaret entertainment and future cruises, I think.
Yeah. I feel like MSC looked at Royal Caribbean's Quantum class ships and said, you know what? That is going to work on our next class. Let's do it.
100%. It felt very, very similar to the Quantum ships. With the massive buffet, which goes all the way up around the back. You've got that nice bit of outdoor seating, which is really nice on the Quantum class ships. Massive section up the rear end for breakfast. When breakfast, it was pretty busy on there, but we kept finding bits, Doug, that we were there on the 4th day and we didn't realize that there was another section up there. It is massive.
I want to talk about the casino because not only the smoke situation in and around it, but this was one of the very first MSC cruise ships to say, you know what, we're going to do a non-smoking casino. So how did that play out? And is it truly 100% no smoking?
No smoking at all. Signs up as you're walking around. No smoking at all. And we don't mind it. I must say we much prefer it not being a smoky environment. It is much more comfortable. The only time we had any interaction with smoke was from one of the terraces out near the carousel lounge on one side. I think it was the starboard side of the ship. And if people were smoking out there and they opened the door and the wind was blowing in the wrong way, then you got a waft of smoke come through. But in the casino, smoke free. Loads of space. You weren't crammed in there like you are on some of those ships where you can't turn around, you can't squeeze between aisles, between seats. There was loads of room. I think because it was a thoroughfare from the promenade through to the carousel lounge, they've got to allow enough space to get through. And it was very nice. It was a much nicer experience in the casino than we were when we did Mariner last year, and there's a lot going on in Mariner.
Some of the ones we've been on before have been so tight that even sitting in your chair, people can't walk behind you, and you can't really move. You've got to wait for someone else to move out of their chair for you to actually be able to get up. So there was plenty of space on this one. And usually we will play the slot machines, but we decided on this one to have a little go on roulette. So this is our first experience of playing on the tables, and the croupiers were so nice. They're really absolutely lovely, having a joke with you as well. When your number comes up multiple times in a row and both of you sort of acting disbelieving, we can't understand how this happened. But yeah, they're really nice, really helpful. And I think having on the roulette tables, they had €1 bets as well that you could start with. So having that low starting point was quite nice for our first time, especially. You didn't feel like you were suddenly betting lots and lots of money. You could just do a few small bets to get into the swing of it and get comfortable, which was really nice.
Were the slot machines wound pretty tight?
They always are, Doug. I think they see me coming and get tighter. as with any day in the casino on a cruise ship, you have good days, you have bad days. Just remember you're on a cruise ship and you're having fun, and you'll be all right.
And what you've also got to remember is when you're playing one of the one-armed bandits and you hit a repeat bet and then you've got a maximum bet button that's right next to it, don't do the maximum bet button whilst you've got over €100 sitting in the machine. Yeah. Luckily, we did win on that spin, but there was the sudden panic that went through my husband's eyes at that moment where he realised he'd done a €125 bet on one spin.
Yeah, that could have gone really wrong really quick, but Lady Luck was smiling at that particular moment.
Sounds like it. How about sea days as far as crowds and congestion?
We actually had two. Okay. So on our first, so it was Southampton, then a sea day all the way over to Hamburg, and then there was a sea day from Hamburg over to Rotterdam. Doug, it was February in the North Sea. It was grey, sometimes a slightly different shade of grey, but it was grey and wet. One of the afternoons, we braved the outdoor jacuzzis, and honestly, our feet got so cold. We foolishly took our flip-flops off inside the solarium area indoor pool and sort of did the little trot outside. My feet are still chilly from that. But it was beautiful. Otherwise, once you're inside it. But yeah, it was. I think we had some nice experiences in the fjords before, and it was slightly warmer. But yeah, when they put up a sign saying "caution, icy surface," I think I should have paid more attention to that.
The outdoor pool area they have is absolutely huge. They've got two pools that've got sort of fountains in them, and there's multiple different jacuzzis and lounges within the water. So when it gets to summertime, it will be absolutely amazing. But at the time that we went, it just wasn't really the weather for an outdoor pool excursion, which meant that on the sea days, the indoor pool area they had, which it was for adults and children, it was incredibly busy. So you could be in a hot tub and there's a child there trying to learn how to swim next to you. So we did we tried to do a little bit on the first sea day, but we generally tried to do other activities then. And we on one of the ports, we decided to stay on the ship. And that was when we mainly had a sea day then, when it was a little bit quieter on board.
I'll tell you what, Doug, one of the things they did do on the sea days, you could have brunch in the MDR. And so that brunch was available between 10 and 1. And it was like a farmer breakfast, steak and egg sort of thing. And the concept was lovely. The service was, maybe we just got a bit unlucky. The service wasn't fantastic at that point.
The food was tasty, though. I had some very nice pancakes.
Yeah, it was very nice. It was just a slightly different concept that we hadn't seen before, and we thought, we'll give that one a go.
Do they have the upgrades for the brunches? Like you can upgrade to a filet mignon for €5, things like that?
You wish it was €5. So they didn't have any steak on the menu at all week.
Well, they did, but as an upcharge one.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think that was €18.
Yeah, €18
for a ribeye. But yeah, we didn't go for that. But yeah, that was the only upcharge I remember.
Yeah, that was the only upcharge.
Fair enough. Let's talk about your ports of call on this 7-night cruise. You leave Southampton, you're at sea, then you head to your first port, which was?
So the first port was Hamburg. We got there on a Sunday morning. And Hamburg and Europe pretty much shuts down on a weekend, especially a Sunday. So we actually just walked in from the ship. There's a tunnel that you can walk through that goes underneath the river.
Underneath the
river. The wet one. And then we went to St. Nicholas's Church, which is, being British, I'm aware of the historical things in World War II where we bombed Hamburg quite a lot. And St. Nicholas is bit of a testament to that. They've left it in its ruined state, and it's quite a thing to go and see, as is the town hall. That's a beautiful looking building. So we did that. Honestly, we just had a bit of a walk around. I've worked in Hamburg before, and beyond St. Nicholas's Church, there wasn't much more we wanted to see.
And what was after Hamburg?
Then we had a day at sea, and then we went to Rotterdam, and we stayed on the ship. It's the best thing to do from Rotterdam is to take the train to Amsterdam. On this sailing, I think they had about 10 or 11 hours in port, and it's about a 50-minute train ride direct from Rotterdam to Amsterdam. Unless you're a fan of shipping ports, and Rotterdam's the busiest in Northern Europe. And unless you're a real fan, you can do trips around the port. There are excursions for that, but we stayed on board and did the ropes courses and went on the
we've been to Amsterdam last year on another cruise, so we decided this was going to be the day that we'd stay on the ship. And whilst it was a bit quieter, they've got a few different features on the ship that we wanted to make use of because it had been quite rainy when it'd been a sea day. So we went on the outdoor rope course. So it's like one of those tree rope things. So you clip in and you sort of go around and you're balancing on different rope bits as well, which is really good. And then they had, I think, 3 different slides on the back of the ship as well, and a few water guns, which I managed to get Derek with.
Yeah, it is heated, thankfully. It was a beautiful day. It was about 13 degrees centigrade. Mm-hmm. So it was just about tolerable. And fortunately, all the water was heated. Not necessarily the bit that my wife shot me with the water gun, but
there was a good shot.
There was a good shot. Most of the rest of the water was heated, and it was really fun up the back of the ship there. And it was pretty much empty, so it was a really good time to explore that bit.
Rotterdam's another city that got decimated during World War II.
Yeah. There's quite a lot of those ones where the Germans had occupied and sort of fortified, especially the important ports like Rotterdam. They, took a bit of a beating.
And then your next port?
Was Zeebrugge. So we actually did a cruise to there last year, and we went into Bruges. And Bruges is as pretty as everyone says. It looks like a movie set. It looks like the postcards. It was a pretty grey average day. So we decided just to take the tram into Blankenberge, which is a seaside town. It's got a sort of an Art Deco pier, which is pretty cool. And we just had a walk around town and got some lunch. It was quite interesting to get the tram and to take the public transport. There's a shuttle from the ship because where you dock there, it's next to a naval base. For security reasons, they take you on a shuttle bus from the ship to the little terminal they have there, and then it was like a 5-minute walk just to go and get the tram. It's
a very pretty town. You can kind of see that when it gets to the summer period as well. The beach was huge, and there seemed to be a lot of sort of holiday apartments along the beach as well. So if it was middle of summer, then it's the sort of place we definitely look at going back to, and maybe just doing a couple of days there. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I tell you what they had there, Doug. They had, rather than crazy golf, they had crazy snooker. So it's like a putt-putt golf, but putt-putt snooker with different obstacles to go around. And it wasn't open, but that looked really cool. I'd never seen that before.
We might have 2 different takes here, but Northern Europe, early in the year, how cold is it? I mean, you mentioned ice on the deck and snow in Finland, So yeah, I think it got down to about 4 or 5 degrees centigrade, which is just about that freezing point. I'm sorry, I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. Probably mid-30s ish. Okay. But yeah, it wasn't particularly. I'm English, so it doesn't matter. You just sort of walk quicker, right?
And get on with it. 39 Fahrenheit, 4 degrees Celsius. So it wasn't exactly warm. But it was refreshing, I think is the correct terminology. Doug, refreshing.
There you go.
You had to have a few layers on there.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, certainly. Any other ports?
Yeah, so the final one was Le Havre, which I wanted to I'd had a thought of going there for a while. My uncle, who died in World War II, I checked on the Commonwealth Graves site, and he is actually buried in Le Havre. And that was it was about a 15-minute public bus ride from the port, and we navigated that and went and found it, and we found where his grave was and saw that. So I'm a little bit embarrassed that I hadn't done that up until now. But it was fantastic to go and see. And there's a hell of a lot of those places on that Normandy coast, very important historical bits and pieces that are well worth a look. I know that a lot of people that was going in to different places. You can get into Paris from Le Havre, and is it Montfleur, the town with the castle. There was a lot going on in the Havre. We after we did the went to the cemetery, we'd done a little bit of a quick Google and found a French restaurant right near the port there, and had a beautiful lunch of meat, cheese, and wine, and it was very nice, very, very nice. But yeah, we didn't explore it too much. But yeah, we did what we wanted to do, and then got back on the boat.
What was your dig earlier about the cheeses we have in North America?
Honestly, you guys call it cheddar, and it's really not. There's so much more subtlety to cheese than we've experienced on the offerings on some of the royal cruises and even the celebrity cruise we went on. I think the second best was probably the Princess.
Yeah, I think Europe in general, that there's such a wide range of cheese. Cheese is a big thing in Europe. In all the different countries, they've got different variations on it. So because there's so many countries in such a small area, each having their own variation on it, the selection of cheese that you can have is just much wider than what you would then get on like a North American cruise. So on this one, you can, even in the buffet, you'd go over there and you could have 8 different types of cheese that are available, depending whatever your palate is. And with Le Havre, where we had lunch, we had a lovely sort of charcuterie section of the meat, bread, and cheese. And you can again on that, just on one little platter, you had probably about six or 7 different types of cheese and different types of bread for it to go on. And it was just, it's delicious. You eat it just for the cheese. And
it was, they were all good, Doug. There was no bad cheese in there.
Sure. Because this is a ferry schedule or an interline schedule, whatever you want to call it, people debarking and embarking at different ports of call. What ports during your voyage did you notice had the most people getting on and off?
I think it was Southampton and Hamburg. The first couple of days on board, there was a larger German contingent than the rest of the crew. So I think maybe there was a few more families on board on the first couple of days. So I think it must have been a German holiday, perhaps. I think Hamburg was a turnaround. There was a lot of taxis in the port. Southampton was the biggest turnaround. I think MSC and the travel agents had canvassed pretty hard. The boat was at pretty much full capacity, as far as I'm aware. People, if they had any issues, had reported that they couldn't move rooms because the ship was full. And
I think they were pushing in particular deals in Southampton and Hamburg. On the first day when we get on, we were attempting in very broken French to speak to a lady in one of the hot tubs, and she was from Paris, but she had actually driven over the ship there because it was a cheaper deal for her to drive over to Hamburg and get on it there rather than doing the port in Le Havre.
That's one way to make it work.
Yeah.
So I think one of the only things, by having every single port where everyone was embarking and debarking, that meant they had to do a safety briefing for the people getting on every single time. The way they do it was a little bit different from how we've done it before with Royal, where we would normally watch it on the TV in the room or on our phone, and then you go over to your station and have your CPass scanned, and that's it. Whereas with this, you had to, a very particular time of the day, they closed everything down, and you had to go to your room, watch a video, make a phone call from your room, then go to your station and have your CPass card scanned as well. But then everything stayed closed. So for an hour period, you couldn't get a drink from the bar, even a bottle of water or something. So knowing about it now, it's okay. After or later on in the cruise, you can just pre-plan to get a drink. But when you've already been on the cruise a couple of days and everyone else is getting on, is doing that, and you can't get a cocktail at the bar, it was a little bit disappointing when that first happened.
Yeah, if you close the bar at 4:00, which is cocktail o'clock, if you're asking me, you're asking for trouble. But yeah, that was, once we got used to it, it was okay. But yeah, it was something we hadn't experienced before. I know people comment about the amount of announcements. Put the shoe on the other foot. If you were French and you've got on board and your grasp of English isn't great, then hearing all the important announcements in your own language is fine. And honestly, after a while, you do tune out. What do they call it? The elegant evening in the theatre. They had the captain, and everyone comes down with all their best suits on. And the captain, I think he talked in 6 languages.
So he did English, Spanish, Italian, French. He couldn't do German though, so he'd learned a few words, bless him. But I mean, the fact that he was able to do 4 different languages, a whole welcome speech in those, it was incredible. It became a thing where everyone was giving him a round of applause the moment he started a new language, because it was like, oh, when is he going to stop? How many does he know?
I guess compared to before the shutdown, when MSC had you standing out on the deck going through 7 different languages and it took over an hour on some ships, this is probably a lot easier.
No. Thank goodness times have moved on.
Yeah.
As I say, it's not the perfect solution. I can see why you hear and you read people grumbling about it. Look, as I say, you're on a cruise ship.
Sure.
I think we've all been spoiled, and I think that's the same with service. You know, I think we all know and nearly accept that service isn't the same as it was pre-pandemic. What's starting to grind on cruises, and especially me, is that, you know, lines are reporting, you know, record profits, they're making money, and all we see is that service is going down in our estimation and the prices are going up. I think at some point there will be pushback. I know that, you know, it's a supply and demand scenario at the moment, but I think eventually people will push back, and I think this is part of MSC. You know, people are looking to them, you know, instead of Royal, instead of Celebrity, instead of Princess, perhaps, just because they're a little bit bemused by, you know, as I say, paying top dollar and not getting what we were used to. Maybe we were spoiled too much before. But yeah, it certainly makes me think, after having such a good experience, about would I be loyal to Royal again? Yeah, it's definitely one to think about.
From the outside looking in, it looks like MSC just has a lot of that FU money, because it could be like a tax write-off for the cargo operations, which is their bread and butter. So they don't really care what they price it at. They just want the ego and chips.
Yeah, that's not wrong. Yeah, they kept shipping stuff around the world, and I think that's probably part of it. They've probably got the buying power as well when it comes to getting in and out of ports. You know, things like fuel. One thing on Euriba, sorry, Doug, and it has got the Save the Seas motif on the side, and it is an LNG ship, and it's just something that struck me now. That smell of marine fuel burning, I didn't smell once. And so whenever it docked in port, it was on shore power, and there wasn't the big plumes of smoke as the engines kick up as you're about to leave port. Thinking about it now, I don't remember that as we are used to seeing and experiencing. So, you know, that maybe that is a good thing with the LNG.
And I think with them as well, when we were waiting for one of the shows to start, they had the projection that came on, and it gave you a bit more information about the work that they do with the environment and sort of charities around the world. And it was really quite impressive just to see the reach that they have and the effect that they have on so many different projects. It was just nice to know that, yes, they are making, profit, obviously, in their company, but they are putting that back into the world as well, which is really nice to see.
So your cruise comes to an end. Let's talk about debark. How long did it take you to get off the ship, and how was the process?
Once again, maybe a bit more old school. We've got used to doing the self-disembark. On this one. That time was much earlier, so we decided to leave our bags outside. It was a process that took about 15 minutes. By the time you wander through the endless bits of rope and whatever, but it was fine. And the Horizon terminal is pretty efficient. So yeah, it was pretty quick.
Yeah. The only thing we're used to, normally if we have a particular time we have to disembark, you've got a disembarkation group. Normally there are screens around the ship that will say which group is able to leave at what time. This kind of had that, but you had to go and meet in a set location. So for our group, we had to go meet in the casino, and we had to wait in the casino with everyone else in our group until our group was called, and then follow one of the staff members through to which side of the ship they wanted us to leave on. So it was all fine to do, but it was just a little bit different from what we've experienced before. But yeah, we walked out, picked up our bag straight away, and went out within about 10 minutes.
Yeah, fortunately it wasn't raining. We walked back to the car.
Do you have any first-time tips for someone considering sailing either MSC for the first time or MSC Euriba?
For sure, try it. It was a beautiful ship. The entertainment in the carousel lounge was fantastic. my top tip when coming out of the theatre, and it is a bit of a pinch point, drop down onto the 5th floor, use the stateroom corridor there to get, somewhere else to get through, because if they've got something going on in the promenade there, it becomes an absolute car park. So yeah, just take the stairs there and nip down, and that's actually something I've done on some other ships as well. So yeah, that's my little tip for that. But it is beautiful. Just going with an open mind. It is different. MSC do have less space per person than other cruise ships. That's widely publicized. We were on a packed ship, and apart from leaving the theatre, we never felt crowded. The food in the buffet was absolutely great for cruise ship buffet food. The MDR was a smidge. Maybe if you're more of a fan of seafood, you would have absolutely loved it.
And then just from me, just because it is, a Northern Europe cruise, so just for the location, if anyone was looking to go, I would say do your research beforehand. So we tried to be as good as we could and use local public transport options. But I'd just say have a look in advance where you're looking to go, what your options are, and check how you'd pay for those, what stops you need to do. And it is multi-language, so not everyone does speak English. Most people do, or to at least some extent. But I imagine we're the same as you guys. We speak English. We know how to say hello in a couple of languages, but that's about it. Mm-hmm. So if you can learn just a couple of basic phrases in the language of the ports that you're going to, it would be useful. Just so that way people are generally more helpful as well if they think you've attempted to say something to them.
They get it ever so slightly more helpful if you give it at least a college try when it comes to the local language.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? I was in Vietnam for work a couple of months back rather, and I was shocked by the people, mostly Americans, I will say that were getting frustrated and telling the hotel clerks, the bus drivers to speak English. I'm like, you're halfway across the world in their country. Why don't you learn their language?
Absolutely. I think that's part of the reason why we decided to take local transport as well, to be a little bit more adaptive into the local bits and pieces. And Doug, just a funny thing I remembered, there's quite a lot of Indian bar staff and sort of Filipino bar staff on the ship, and they were fantastic. There was a guy from the north of England sort of barking at this poor lad behind the bar. And he's saying, "Can't you understand what I'm saying?" And honestly, he had such a thick accent, I couldn't understand what he was saying. I could understand the barman more. So I think that's one of those things. There are less English-speaking staff on board, but they're all trying to do a good job. They were fantastic. Just be accepting that you are on a European ship, and it's not an English European ship. It is an Italian-driven ship. And, so there is a bit more of a language barrier, but, they're really nice. Everyone had a smile on their face. It was, very polite.
Everyone will go out of their way to help you. Even if they can't help you, then they'll make sure they get you to someone who can.
Yeah. What was the biggest highlight of this cruise for y'all?
It was the entertainment in the carousel lounge. It absolutely blew me away. So it's what I do for a living, and I would quite happily listen to them all day. It was special seeing my uncle's grave in Le Havre. I'd love to do more of that Normandy coast, but just the ship in general is just beautiful. But yeah, the entertainment, that big band at sea, I would book again just to listen to that. That was great.
I mean, I go and see quite a lot of theatre, and I've sung my fair share as well. So I'm generally quite picky when it comes to performers, but it was just incredible, that experience. And every single night they had an incredible selection of music, and they blew me away. And I've come away from it I did speak to both of them and sort of give my feedback and compliments and everything to them. But I've come away and I now follow both of them on social media, because if they finish their contract there, I'll be curious to see what it is they do next. If they go on to another cruise ship, I know I'll be booking that cruise ship to go and see them perform. And
to put a bow on this interview, your final thoughts of MSC Euriba?
Simply, it's just a beautiful ship. That atrium section with the Swarovski crystal staircases, it is as sparkly and wonderful as you can imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just try it. If you use other cruise lines already, or if this is your first time cruising, it is a great ship to give a go. Price point wise is set at a very achievable price point for a lot of people. You can pay extra and do a more elevated experience if you want to, but it's got those options on there. So it's very open to as many people as possible.
We've been talking with Derek and Kate about their 7-night cruise on MSC Euriba. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. I know we have a bit of a time difference this evening, so many thanks and have a good one.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Doug.
Yeah, thanks, Doug, and thanks for the podcast and the news every day on YouTube. It's great fun. Thank you very much.
Just back from a cruise? Let's talk about it. Email Doug at cruiseradio.net.
A big question we get at Cruise Radio is, how do I know if I need trip insurance? Simple answer. If you're getting on a plane, taking a road trip, or getting on a cruise ship, you need to have travel insurance. Hey, it's Doug Parker from my friends at tripinsurance.com. Not only does tripinsurance.com protect your vacation investment, but it also gives you peace of mind in case anything were to go wrong on your trip. How do they do it? They offer 3 different types of trip insurance policies. Good, better, and best. One policy for every vacation budget. But it doesn't just stop there. They're up to 40% lower when you shop around on other comparison sites. Plus, tripinsurance.com offers 24-hour customer support before, during, and after your trip, online claims assistance, and travel alerts to let you know what's going on at your destination. But find out for yourself. Check out tripinsurance.com.
All right, Dougie, let's see what we got for you, buddy. Cruise Radio is produced at the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida. Get cruise news, ship reviews, and money-saving tips every Thursday on Cruise Radio. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show. If you want to help spread the word, give Cruise Radio a 5-star review. Find Cruise Radio where you listen to your favorite podcast or online at cruiseradio.net. I'm your announcer,